It all began when I was 17 years old. Currently, I am a 21-year-old female. I won't go into detail about my troubled relationship with my dad, but suffice it to say that it was bumpy. I was the one who had to tread carefully around my stepparents since my stepsister, a 20-year-old girl, was the golden child. I felt this constant animosity from my stepsister. She decided to ruin my life even though I hadn't done anything to deserve it. Also, her mom always seemed to back her up and would occasionally join in on my stepsister's antics to really bring me down. My father would always agree with my stepmother and punish me according to the false accusations they made against me since he would never go against his wife. Despite my best efforts, I soon recognized that no one in that house had any concern for my well-being, so I retreated. I became so reclusive that I hardly spoke to them. It appears that this truly irritated my stepsister because she has dedicated her life to ensuring that I am as unhappy as possible. My dad's pricey watch mysteriously vanished one day. He took great pride in this watch. It wasn't like any other. When I got home from school, my dad was irate. My stepmom glared at me, and my stepsister pretended not to notice that it had disappeared. Though I couldn't put my finger on it, I sensed that something was amiss. My stepmom then suddenly began accusing me of stealing the watch. My recent unusual behavior and need for attention led her to conclude that I must have stolen it. Naturally, my stepsister supported her, claiming that she noticed me behaving suspiciously when I was in my dad's room. For the record, the only suspicious behavior I exhibited was while I was grieving the loss of my cat, a companion of mine since the age of 3. Obviously, I needed attention badly. Even though I couldn't live with my mom, after my parents' divorce, my cat was the one constant in my life. My dad demanded that we all eat dinner together every night, and my behavior for desperate attention consisted of sobbing at a couple of those meals. It was solely because my stepsister repeatedly made fun of how much better the house seemed without my ugly creature that I finally snapped. My stepsister was never advised by my dad to quit being cold-hearted. Just telling me to calm down was all he did. Regardless, the reasons my stepmother and stepsister were pointing the finger at me came as a total surprise to me. I had no idea the watch had gone lost, much less been involved in any way. My attempts at self-defense met with nothing more than ineffectiveness. Even before I told my dad, he was sold. I had to get out of there because he went off on me and said I was no different from my mother, whom he had a history of calling a maniac and a crazy person. He immediately expelled me. I was 17 years old. Apart from my mom's house, I didn't have a clue where to go or what to do. My dad remained silent for the subsequent 4 years. Nothing happened, not even a response to my attempts to clear my name via text or phone. They couldn't care less that I didn't steal the watch, even though I knew it deep within. All the blame had been placed on me by my stepsister and stepmother, and my dad had done nothing to stop them. His acceptance of their story without seeking my approval greatly wounded me. I did my best to put the betrayal in the past and focus on getting back on my feet. The majority of my time was devoted to taking care of my mentally unstable mother. The fact that I was able to spend quality time with her is the only silver lining. Not only did I make it through high school, but I also made it through college. Neither of the events included my dad. Even though it hurt a lot at first, the agony gradually subsided over the years. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. My grandpa was turning 75, and despite everything, I was invited to his birthday party at a farmhouse he rented for the day. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go at first because I knew my dad, stepmom, and stepsister would be there. But Grandpa and I had always been close. He was there for me when my dad kicked me out. He lived in a retirement home, so he couldn't offer me a place to stay, but he helped me a lot financially. He was also my best friend, so I knew I couldn't miss such a big milestone for him. I decided to suck it up and go. When I walked into the party, I immediately felt all the old tension come back. Seeing my dad again after 4 years sitting with my stepmom and stepsister like nothing had happened made my stomach churn. I kept my distance, but every time I looked at them, I felt a lump in my throat and had to fight back tears. I mostly hung out with other relatives and avoided any interaction with them. My stepsister didn't even look at me, and my stepmom had this smug look on her face, making me feel worse. I wanted to confront them in front of everyone, but I knew I couldn't ruin Grandpa's day. Then something unexpected happened. Grandpa gave a toast. At first, he thanked everyone for coming and talked about how blessed he was. But then, out of nowhere, he brought up my dad's missing watch. He revealed that my stepsister had stolen it. I made regarding where I stand with my father. Now I don't know what to do. My dad has been trying to contact me nonstop since the party. Initially, most of his texts and voice messages were him apologizing and asking for forgiveness. He was saying that he was wrong and that he wanted to make things right. Then they slowly started becoming about how I had apparently brainwashed his father and tried to ruin his relationship with my stepmother. Of course, that hurt a lot. I mean, is there any way that this man would choose me over his rotten wife and daughter? Sorry, that was mean, but I don't know what to do with how I feel. My dad is still asking to meet me and talk about everything that happened. I don't know what to do. I don't think that my dad will apologize for anything, especially after his last few texts about me brainwashing Grandpa. But on the off chance that he does apologize, I don't know if I can ever trust him again. It's been 4 years of feeling like I didn't matter to him, that he could just toss me aside like that. As for my stepsister and stepmom, I haven't heard a word from them, and honestly, I don't want to. They ruined my relationship with my dad and turned my life upside down. I don't think I could ever forgive them for that. So AATA for not wanting to see my dad or forgive him and for still feeling bitter about everything that happened. Update 1. It's been a week since I last posted here, and I've lost count of the number of comments and messages I got begging me for an update. So here it is. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented and empathized with me. Thank you for all the advice and your criticisms. Also, it's crazy how many people actually cared about what I was going through. A lot of you told me to go no contact with my dad, while others suggested giving him a chance to explain. Well, I ended up deciding to meet with him, even though my gut was screaming not to. I don't really know why I agreed to it. Maybe I just wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, though I wasn't sure if he deserved that. But deep down, there was a small part of me that hoped that he'd finally show some real remorse and prove that he was sorry for what he did. So I texted him back and agreed to meet at a cafe we used to go to when I was younger. I figured it was a good neutral ground. When I walked in, I saw him sitting there, looking kind of nervous. It was weird seeing him after so long, especially after everything that went down at Grandpa's party. For a second, I thought maybe things could go back to how they used to be. But that feeling didn't last long. He started by apologizing, saying he knew he'd messed up and that he was sorry for believing my stepmom and stepsister. He talked about how hard it's been for him since the truth came out and how he feels like he failed as a father. At first, I was starting to soften. I thought that there was a tiny chance of us being able to at least try to rebuild some kind of relationship. But then things took a turn. He went on this long rant about how he'd been under so much pressure back then, and that he didn't know what to believe. Which, I mean, okay, I get it, but that doesn't excuse how he tossed me aside for 4 years. Then he began to actually accuse me of manipulating Grandpa. He said that he wasn't entirely convinced I didn't somehow stir the pot to make Grandpa turn against him and embarrass his family in front of everyone. I was so shocked by my dad's accusation that I couldn't even say anything initially. I mean, the guy basically admitted he still didn't fully trust me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just sat there and stared at him while I tried to process how he could say something like that. All those texts about him wanting to make things right, and now he wanted me to apologize. At that point, I started to realize this meeting was a huge mistake. He wasn't here to apologize, at least not genuinely. He just wanted to clear his own conscience or shift some of the blame onto me. I called him out on it and told him that it wasn't fair for him to put any of this on me. I reminded him that he was the one who chose to believe my stepsister and stepmom without even giving me a chance to defend myself. But instead of taking responsibility, he doubled down, saying I was being unfair to him and that it wasn't his fault because they, meaning my stepmom and stepsister, had tricked him. He even suggested that maybe I should forgive them because family is family. That was it for me. I couldn't listen to any more excuses. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught up in the mess and was embarrassed in front of the whole family. I told him I didn't want to hear from him anymore unless he could genuinely take responsibility for his actions. Then I got up and left. Since that meeting, I felt weird. At least that's the best way I can put it. I'm relieved that I finally confronted him and saw his true colors. But I'm angry that he still couldn't just own up to what he did. He's still more concerned about how everything looks to the rest of the family than actually repairing our relationship. I feel like I've wasted so much time hoping for some kind of closure, only to realize it's never going to happen. Update 2. Okay, so I was not planning on updating again, but things have gotten wild. I thought I was done with all this drama, but apparently my family had other plans. Remember how I said my dad, stepmom, and stepsister were still trying to spin the situation? Well, let's just say that backfired spectacularly. After that meeting with my dad, I went no contact. I was done. I blocked his number and ignored any family members who tried to guilt me into giving him another chance. 2 weeks later, my grandpa called me and asked if I could come over to talk. I wasn't sure what it was about, but since Grandpa was the only one who had my back through all of this, I figured I'd hear him out. Grandpa essentially told me that he had come across some evidence while going through old financial records of the company. He had been suspicious for a while, especially after everything that happened with the watch, and decided to do some digging. What he found shocked even him. It turns out my stepsister and stepmom had been running a whole string of scams behind everyone's backs for years. This wasn't just about the watch. They had been siphoning money from the company's accounts, my dad's accounts, and taking out credit in my dad's name, racking up debt they'd hidden from the rest of the family. How did Grandpa find out? Well, turns out my stepsister had a really bad understanding of how credit cards worked. I don't think she realized that while making purchases out of the company's accounts, my grandpa would have been able to see where all the transactions had been made. When my grandpa saw transactions for nail appointments and hair blowouts, he knew for a fact that it wasn't my dad. My stepmother had always kept her nails clipped and was very adamant about never ruining her hair with heat. So, the next obvious suspect was my stepsister. Not only that, but he also found a fake loan under my dad's name that my stepmom took out to fund my stepsister's expensive habits. This wasn't just a one-time thing. They had been doing this for years, and my dad had no clue. Grandpa decided he'd had enough of their lies. But instead of pressing charges, he took matters into his own hands in the way only Grandpa could. He went straight to his lawyer and disinherited my dad. Yeah, he cut him out of the will entirely. Everything, and I mean everything, that was supposed to go to my dad is now going somewhere else, including a hefty chunk that's coming to me. Grandpa said that by siding with my stepmom and stepsister for all these years, my dad had proven that he wasn't responsible enough to handle the family's legacy. Not only that, but the fact that my dad kicked me out with nowhere to go, and even after the truth came to light, still refused to apologize to me, made Grandpa want to leave my dad with absolutely nothing. As for my stepsister and stepmom, they're pretty much screwed. Grandpa didn't stop at just disinheriting my dad. He also made sure that my stepsister and stepmom couldn't get their hands on a dime of family money. He got his lawyer to block them from accessing any of the trusts or family assets. So everything they thought they were going to get their greedy little hands on, gone. Grandpa is even helping my dad sell his house so that none of them can continue to leech off him financially. They're going to be completely cut off. Oh, but that's not all. Apparently, when my stepmom found out what Grandpa had done, she lost it. And I mean a full-on meltdown. She tried to guilt-trip my dad into fighting back against Grandpa, but there's nothing they can do legally. My dad's stuck because he didn't protect his finances, and now he's basically at the mercy of whatever my stepmom and stepsister want to do next. And here's the kicker. My stepsister had the nerve to try and reach out to me after all of this went down. I got this pathetic message from her where she was basically begging for help because she doesn't have any money left to cover her bills or lifestyle now that Grandpa's cut them off. She even tried to spin this sob story about how she never meant for things to get so bad and that she's just been under pressure from our stepmom this whole time. Honestly, the fact that she had the nerve to text me about her struggles, when she was the reason I was out in the streets at the age of 17, made me see red. Even when she was reaching out to me, she could not seem to take responsibility for her actions, and instead blamed it on her mother. I sent her a short response, basically telling her that she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. I don't feel bad for her at all. She and her mom ruined my relationship with my dad and tried to destroy my life, so why should I care what happens to them now? Grandpa warned me that they might try to turn this back on me, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to paint me as the bad guy again. Which brings me to my dad. He's a wreck. He keeps calling and texting, but I've only responded once. I told him that until he's ready to fully take responsibility and stop blaming other people for what happened, I'm not interested in having a relationship. I can't keep putting myself through this cycle of betrayal and forgiveness, only to get hurt all over again. There's still a lot up in the air, especially with how my dad's handling everything. Part of me wonders if he'll ever fully cut ties with my stepmom and stepsister, or if he's just too deep in their lives to see the truth. I guess we'll see. Right now, I'm focusing on myself, but something tells me this isn't over yet. Update 3. Well, here we are. I wasn't sure if I'd be posting another update, but a lot has happened and I thought it would be a good time to tie up all the loose ends. If you've been following my story, you'll know that my life has been one wild roller coaster of family drama. But I can finally say that things are looking up for me, and not so much for the rest of my family. After Grandpa disinherited my dad and cut off my stepmom and stepsister from all the family money, things took a serious turn for them. My dad is in financial freefall. Grandpa wasn't kidding when he said he was getting that house sold. Turns out he wasn't just helping my dad sell it, he was forcing it. See, Grandpa technically owns the property, and my dad was just living there under some fancy trust arrangement that Grandpa controlled. So when my grandpa cut off all financial ties with my dad, it meant that the house my dad was living in was also no longer his to live in. Grandpa gave my dad a chance and told him that he'd let him stay there as long as he kicked my stepmom and stepsister out. Of course, my dad could never turn his back on the woman who ruined his life. He insists on blaming Grandpa or myself for the outcome, and he refuses to accept the reality of the situation. He still denies that my stepmom and stepsister persuaded him. Our relationship will remain dormant until he admits his role in this mess. Despite how awful it is, I've decided to accept it. In contrast, Grandpa is thriving. He's been there for me every step of the way, and our bond has only strengthened since the truth has emerged. We've had several conversations on the future, and he has expressed his desire to ensure my well-being, particularly in light of what I've been through. This is, I suppose, the final chapter of this tale. At last, my step-parents, my dad, stepmother, and stepsister, are taking responsibility for their deeds, and I can go on with my life. Both monetarily and psychologically, I've come a long way since then. Never again will I allow any of them to bring me down. It has been quite a journey, but I am pleased with my final destination. Everyone who helped me out by leaving comments is deeply appreciated. I intend to return to this place, perhaps in 5 years, to inform you of the remarkable improvement in my life.